Well, hello, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and I hope that you're all gathered here today with great expectation, because I'm so very happy and so very honored to have a person I consider a friend back with us, the one, the only Magenta Pixie. Magenta, so glad to have you with us. Thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for inviting me back.
It is my pleasure. And we just had a little short discussion about something that you called positive distraction. I think that'll help a lot of people if you just share that real quickly.
Yeah, I mean, recently I've been focused elsewhere. As I was telling you, I'm getting married in inverted commas. It's not quite full marriage in the way people would think. I'm having a hand fasting, so we're getting hand fasted, which is the true marriage. But anyway,
absolutely, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so I've been focused on that as we've set the date and found the venue. So I'm sitting here looking at really sort of 3D things like flowers, cakes and dresses, and actually really enjoying it. And so I said to the nine, you know, am I distracting myself? Should I be focused back, you know, in the path regarding the starseeds, regarding the energy, communicating with you? Am I distracting myself? Am I just falling into a 3D system distraction by focusing on these things? And what they explained to me was, if you focus with joy and with the trajectory of intention in a cohesive sense, everything merges together. So it's not like, oh, well, my spiritual path is over here, but I'm going to jump over here and focus on this thing, which is not part of my spiritual path. Oh dear, I'm distracted. I should be over here. What actually happens is there is no over here or over here. Everything merges together. So you might think that you're being distracted, but if you have that cohesive energy, or put another way, if you are you've activated the DNA, or if you are a conscious starseed, or taking a conscious spiritual path, raising the kundalini, etc., then there is no distraction from that point of view. You know, you're operating in that 0 point field, if you like, and everything falls into place. And so you'll find miraculously, when you say, for example, you might be planning a wedding and think that you are distracted, but then you might actually bump into someone who you want perhaps to be the DJ or the florist, and it turns out that you have a link with them. And what I'm saying is that synchronicity comes into that path. But having said that, you can distract yourself if you sit there and think, oh, I'm distracted, I should be over here, I shouldn't be doing this. Then it's your emotion that distracts you, not actually what you're doing. And so I asked the nine this question, and they brought through a response for me, which was the video uploaded last week.
Excellent. So it's all right to have some positive distractions in your life, as long as you manage them responsibly.
Well, not all right. It's actually quite essential, because
exactly.
if you're focused all the time on, I must see what the starseeds are doing, and I need to focus on the energy, and like, how's my DNA going? And that is, I mean, the nine said the statement, in your reality, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
I was just going to say that, yeah. Magenta, you stole my thunder.
Yeah, and Jill a dull girl, as the case may be. So obviously, when you go into positive distraction with focus, it's like you're taking a hiatus, you're taking a holiday from one focus to another. So it's really about being conscious of where your thoughts are, and if they are in alignment with your belief structure, your spirituality, you can make everything part of that. And you can do that consciously, or you can relax and just have the knowing that you are in a state of positive distraction, which is a bit of a you know, a mismatch of words, really. But as I said, there is no distraction. So when you do that with focus, everything becomes one, and it's important to be able to do that and to focus in different areas, and it becomes a learning curve.
Absolutely. And yet another interesting synchronicity between us, Magenta. I also recently got engaged, and we're planning a wedding too. So very, very interesting on that regard.
It's great.
And let me ask you a question. How often do you hear from the nine?
Oh, wow. What a great question. Well, from the nine, from the perspective of that higher aspect of myself that I communicate with, on the one hand, they're always there, because obviously they're an intrinsic part of me and that higher self construct, if you like, that matrix. But really, when you bring that into 3D terms, one would be consciously aware of that that connection. So I really feel that that is most of the time now, having been on this path for many years, most of the time it's down to me. It's like, do I dial up and call the 9 today? Sort of like, hello, are you there? Oh, yes, you are. I'd like to talk to you. So, but sometimes it can work the other way. And you aren't thinking about that connection, you're focused elsewhere, and then the 9 will come in. How often? I guess I would have to say every day.
That's
Really,
amazing. That's
really.
beautiful. That's beautiful. And, you know, some of us, I think, because of the realities of life and the pressures of life and just the way it is to be to be human, sometimes we think that the divine has forgotten us. Sometimes we kind of feel left alone. And I've even gone so far as, I think maybe a year or two ago, to say that the gods were gone and they gave us what we were supposed to do and are watching us do it. But I've had some amazing things happen to me, Magenta, in the last week to 10 days. And I'd invite you to comment on this, but I think without a doubt that there are definitely divine beings that not only know who we are, but they're interested in us. And it blows my mind, and it tremendously humbles me, almost brings me to tears to think that the Father and the Mother, the great august beings they are, will actually take the time to very specifically communicate with specific human individuals on this earth. I've had it happen to me. Sandra's had it happen to her. We've had it happen to us over the week, 10 days. And it is just a tremendous realization that as great and as grand and as august as the, as the divine ones are, that they still know us, Magenta. They still see us, and they still actually take time to cause messaging through plants, animals, trees, people to come to us. Isn't that rather staggering?
It's amazing, and it is staggering, and it's beautiful. Going back sort of when I first woke up, which was 1993, the energies weren't the same as they are now, and anyone who's been on a path for that amount of time will know the difference. And so it was more difficult, if you like, to make that connection. There had to be some kind of assistance, some kind of ritual or meditation or crystals or something. And I myself would go long periods without conscious connection. Obviously, it is there constantly, and often it will be there in your dreams without you perhaps being aware, and you might not remember that. But in my subjective experience, I would look back and think, well, I went sort of several months at a time with no connection. But then I look back and think, well, was that the 9 that simply didn't communicate with me, or was that me because I didn't call upon them? I was looking to the 3D to solve my issues, and you go through this temporary forgetting, and oh yeah, I used to speak to the 9 6 months ago. I wonder if I can call them again. Or at that time it was a different aspect to the 9. But now that energy is so different. It's so close. It's very much a unity. So anyone in that energy who's made that connection now, it is very much instant. The minute you even think of that higher self construct or that consciousness, it's there. In fact, there are many individuals now who are living in that oneness. And this is really topical because that's what this whole time period is about now that we are in. And you were saying you'd had some interesting experiences in the last sort of week and a half. We've gone through these 3 eclipses to create this sort of eclipse gateway, and then we're going into this Lion's Gate in August. So we had this partial solar eclipse on the 13th of July, which was the seed point into this extremely high energy spike of July the 27th, which is a total lunar eclipse and a full blood moon. Now, I believe it may be July the 28th in America. I'm not sure of the exact timings, but say July 27th, 28th. What the 9 are telling me is when you look astrologically at the year, the 12 months that we call a year, we choose December the 31st to be New Year's Eve, the end of one year, one time period, and then January 1st to be the beginning of the next one. And that is true within this sort of Gregorian calendar setup and the energy that we put into it. We create that. But when you look at the sort of ascension cycles and the mirroring with astrological cycles and other ancient systems, perhaps the Mayans and other indigenous peoples, and the knowings that the starseeds have, then the spiritual New Year's Eve would be the 26th of July, and the spiritual New Year's Day would be the 27th of July, given this full blood moon and total lunar eclipse. Like I said, it may be the 28th for you in America.
Right.
So that's a very big, high energy. And then we're moving further, and then we have the August 8th,
And Magenta, Sandra and I are moving into our new place on those very days.
You are. Well, this is the thing, and it's interesting that there's these weddings, because it's very much about the energy is unity. It's unity with the higher self, unity with the guides. So when it's like, oh, are the 9 talking to me, or should I call them? This energy is more like, I am the 9 and the 9 are Magenta. Mm-hmm. We are one, and we're finding our way with that, and that's beautiful, but it can be a little bit sort of confusing for some, and it can be difficult, and it's difficult to integrate that into the 3D. That's what we are doing, and this energy is the unification. And of course, if we're going upwards to the true twin flame, then we're going to be mirroring that in this reality, hence why there are so many unities in business and in politics and in all structures and in relationships. I was saying to you earlier, I mean, we've got a year of weddings next year, and it's absolutely crazy. Everyone's just getting married in the same year. My mother said, what are you doing to me? My sister's been with her partner for 25 years. I've been with my partner for 15 years. And then I've got my son who's been with his partner for 3 years. My other son who's been with his partner for 3 years. My sister-in-law, well, she's actually my ex-sister-in-law, but still a good friend, and she's been with her partner for like 10 years, and yet everyone's getting married in 2019. But then, of course,
and it's an 11 year.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
You mean
the numerologically added up?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing. There is a unity. There's a unity consciousness sweeping the planet. It's very, at least amongst people that are of like mind with us, huh?
Absolutely. And that unity consciousness has been there a long time, but it's been in philosophy, in idea, it's been in emotion with the starseeds, but now it's all falling into the 3D, and it's like manifesting in front of us. We're actually seeing it and experiencing it. And we have been to a certain extent in 2018, and that just ramps up. Well, it doesn't ramp up in 2019 as of January 1st. It ramps up at the beginning of the new year, which is July 27th or potentially the 28th. That's the new year. We're on the cusp of it sort of right now. These 3 eclipses, the 3rd eclipse, I think, being August 11th, it's creating this portal, this toroidal tube of Stargate energy, and we're moving through it right now, which is why there's such a high energy for those that are connected to this. They are constantly moving through waves of excitement and joy and happiness, and this feeling of something's about to happen and it's going to be really, really great. And then you've got this other
that's the
energy.
Second time you've taken words right out of my mouth so far.
Wow. And then you've got this other energy in 3D, which is like, what is going on? This is crazy, this is chaotic, and I don't want any part of it, and it's got to stop right now, because you're seeing all the weeds being pulled up out of the garden, and it's like we've hidden the weeds behind all these pretty sort of cultured flowers. Now we're taking the cultured flowers, we're bringing the true garden out, if you like, and we have to pull up all the weeds, which makes the garden look like it's been, you know, really messed up, so that we can grow the new one. I guess that's a good metaphor to use, and that's what's happening right now, and it's very, very evident all over.
Absolutely. I'd like to talk about your books, but before that, people have asked me to ask you this question. If it's too invasive or rude, feel free not to answer it, but how did you come up with the name Magenta Pixie?
You know, I've never ever seen a question to be evasive or rude, so I'll answer that. Before I do, there was one thing I wanted to say, and Please. This is really interesting. The last interview that we did, which was about the truthers and the light workers coming together in unity, I can honestly say to you, when it comes to private messages and emails and comments, I have never had so many positive lovely, really, really nice comments about any interview I've ever done. Seriously, I mean, I was inundated for days for people who watched our video. And they were just so, I think it wasn't just that we were talking about truthers and light workers coming together, but they were seeing it in front of them, because I guess they see you as a truther and me as a light worker, even though we agreed that we're the same. We're coming in from these different angles. And I think the people that, you know, watch my work or have followed my work or listened to me could see that. And I've never had so many positive comments about an interview that I've ever done. Every day for days afterwards, I was like, oh my goodness, people just loved the interview. So I don't know if it was the same your end.
Oh, thank you so much. It touches me. I'm sitting here, you know, I'm like the lady in the beauty pageant, trying to keep from crying. And it was very much the same, Magenta. And to be, with full disclosure, the reason that we even had that interview is because you did the video and made the appeal for fellowship and to reach across the aisle, so to speak, between people in the quote unquote New Age camp and people in the truther camp. And I think that what was so very evident to me, and it's still evident, and it's quite remarkable, is that even though you and I are probably as different as we can be as far as genres and content, or genres and presentation, the more I watch you and listen to you, and the more I get to speak with you, which is a real pleasure, I see that we are saying the same things using different languages to different audiences. And if we're really trying to change the world, Sandra laughs when I use that term, but I really do think that we're trying to change the world. And if we're trying to change the world, the thing that we have to do is get the information out to more people. And it's my honor and privilege to be able to reach out to you and to interact with you. And I think it shows the beauty and the power of synergy and the beauty and the power of fellowship. And it just makes no sense to draw a circle that, you know, cuts each other off. Let's draw a bigger circle that includes all of us. And it's my honor and privilege to be with you. And I experience very much the same thing.
Yeah, it's lovely. And we are moving into unity. We're there. And that's all embracing of every single person on this planet, regardless of their religion, their gender expression, the way they choose to live their relationships, the way they, whatever. It's a full unity.
Absolutely.
So, Magenta Pixie, yeah, I mean, interesting. So I opened up a YouTube channel because I had this idea to upload a video. So I hadn't even thought about a YouTube username. So I gave Magenta Pixie no thought. It was like 2 seconds. Kidding. Really, it's not as if I sat and thought, right, what name shall I be? Because it's going to be my magical name for the next X amount of years. I'm going to publish books under this name. So I've got to choose so carefully. Nothing like that whatsoever. I just open up this page. What's your YouTube username? I'm like, what shall I be? And I thought, well, I'd been watching a video the day before by Lee Carroll that channels Cry On. Don't watch that many of his videos because I don't really have time to watch other channeled material, but even back then before I'd started, but I had watched one. It was lovely. And he was talking about the magenta color ray. And as he was talking, I remember closing my eyes and seeing this magenta ray, and it was an emanation as if it were from source itself. That's this feminine aspect of source. Obviously I now know more about the magenta ray, but I didn't then, but I remember seeing it. And I just felt like that color was like washing over me. So I thought, okay, magenta. And then because I love fairies so much, I've been talking to fairies since I was a little girl, and they've just been a part of my life since as long as I can remember. So I thought magenta fairy. And then I thought, oh, that doesn't really sound that good. Hang on a minute. And I thought pixie, because they're the other part of the fairies and pixies. And I talked to both of them. Magenta Pixie, yeah, that sounds good. I had no idea that I would even have one single subscriber. I had no conscious awareness. So really, I just kind of picked it out of the etheric hat, if you like. If it had been a different day, it would have been a different name. Had I planned, I would not have chosen Magenta Pixie. I would have chosen something completely different, and I would have gone more mainstream. I may have chosen my own name, Petra, and perhaps had my mother's maiden name or something, or chosen some other name that seemed more mainstream. Because over the years, I've had people say things like Magenta Pixie, can I really take this person seriously? You know, but now I realize that that was planned, you
Absolutely.
know. I'm supposed to present as this ultimate new age person who's off the planet with the rainbows. Something you said in one of your recent podcasts, you did a couple about some of the stuff in divine architecture.
Yes.
Yeah, everyone's twin flame, and no one has twin flame. But in one of them, I think it was no one has. I've only watched the two. You said about the unicorn and rainbow matrix.
Right.
And I thought that was great, because obviously that was your way of saying, you know, fluffy bunny up in the air, you know, which is where Magenta Pixie is. And the funny thing is, as soon as you said it, I saw it, and I'm thinking, I must tell Jeff that there really is a rainbow and unicorn matrix.
That's
one
amazing.
can access those you know, codes. But
amazing.
The way you've used it was great, and I laughed when I heard you say that. So that's kind of where Magenta Pixie is. And of course, when I come across, I've had clients come to me say, I was really reluctant to come and speak to you, I've been recommended to you, but you know, the name Magenta Pixie, I'm not into all this channeling, I'm not into all this angels. I said, that's fine. And then we get talking, and about 5 minutes in, they'll say, oh, you're not how I expected, you're actually sort of quite normal, you know, grounded. And it's about showing the world that it's all of it, you know. Don't
Absolutely.
be afraid of the rainbow unicorn matrix, but you don't have to live there. We have a 3D world, you know.
That's beautiful, and you made the perfect decision, obviously. And it's funny, about 2 months ago, I had my first experience of actually interacting with the fairy, and Pixie is a pet name I have for Sandra. So yet another synchronicity. But I've read 2 of your books in the last few days. I'm working my way through the third. And this book right here, not because Magenta Pixie's on the channel, but this book, Masters of the Matrix, when I read this book, and if you read this book, one thing that this book really did, Magenta, is it removed this idea, it removed this fear, it removed this foreboding of this great big monolithic matrix that can't be escaped, can't be broken, that that is going to control our lives. You really show in this book how we can master the matrix. I think this book is a great gift to humanity. And if you haven't read it, go on Magenta's website, which she's going to tell us about, or go to Amazon and get this book. I devoured it. It's a beautiful book. Thank you for this gift, Magenta. Now, I now know that not only can I survive the matrix, but I can master it. And it's relatively simple.
Yeah, it's amazing, because obviously that perspective is coming in from the 9. And as I said about unity, we are one. But back in 2016, when that information came through, it came through in such a long stream of consciousness, very similar to how I bring forward the material for the videos, but it just went on. And I didn't really understand the material at first. I would be reading it, and it would be coming through me, and then I'd stop after a couple of chapters and then read it again, and I'd be sort of a bit confused by what was coming forward, because I couldn't get I was expanded enough to be able to make the connection and bring the information through, but then to get back to that expansion in order to read it was more difficult. I had to read the book, once it was completely finished, 6 times, because I realized that you open the expansion and you receive, and then you work with what you have received, you allow it to activate you, which then creates the expansion of the processing and the understanding. So the processing and the understanding comes afterwards. So yes, it's a very good way of removing that fear that there is this controlling system, which there is.
There is.
But we are here to become sovereign, become empowered. And as we do that, we create the entire code within the matrix. We change that matrix, especially when we learn what we truly are. And each book sort of embellishes on that. Obviously, the third book, if you've started, you'll see that that's kind of taking it a step further. So Masters of the Matrix is very much about matrix awareness, first
Absolutely.
of all, and then matrix mastery. So you become aware of what you are and you master that.
Yes. And Petra, can you describe this very, very profound process that you talk about in the book called emotional integration. Can you describe that for our listeners, please?
Yeah, this is really about in the New Age community. You have a lot of people that are very afraid of negative emotion, and you will hear it time and time again. Don't feel fear. And you'll get groups of usually women, no offense, getting together. Oh dear, she's still full of fear. Can you say, yeah, she's got a lot of fear in her. I mean, it goes on. I've seen it, I've witnessed it.
Right.
You know, or you'll say something like, oh, I feel really worried about so-and-so. Like, oh, you're feeling guilt. Like, it's a great big no-no. You know, you just can't feel those negative emotions, because if you do, you're not on a spiritual path and you've failed, you know. And it's erroneous thinking. I can understand why people think that when they're touching on those positive emotions, but it's the first step. The next step is integration. Well, really, the integration is all of it, but you kind of go away from balance at first. That's the fluffy bunny, what you've referred to as the unicorn rainbow matrix. But then you come back down and you integrate. So you realize that if we weren't supposed to feel negative emotions, what on earth are we doing here in incarnation when our entire reality is faced with suffering in a polarity reality? We're constantly looking at the opposite of what we are. There's happiness and there's sadness, and there's good and there's bad. We have this polarity. So we learn that when we feel these negative emotions, they're not there to be transcended. It's like, oh dear, oh no, I felt a bit of fear. Oh, that was really bad. No, breathe it out, close your eyes, go away fear. That's it, gone, back in love. Great. Yes, that's a technique, but that's transcendence. However, if you feel fear and you allow yourself to succumb to fear for a week or 6 months or 10 years, then you are not exercising your full potential, moving into sovereignty and becoming a master of the matrix, because fear is an entity. It is negative, and therefore it will feed off you if you like. But there has to be a balance. So emotional integration is about allowing these emotions to come in wherever on the scale they may be. It's specific to negative emotion, and working through this so that you integrate. Because if you feel fear without any integration, that, as you will know, having read the book, becomes a code within that matrix, which is a six-dimensional structure, like a database or computer system, very close to that. And then it sets down into the third dimension, and then we create that which is to be afraid of.
And repressing those emotions sends the same type of signal to the matrix, right?
It absolutely does, because you haven't got rid of it. It's just, you just buried it down and sort of, well, hide that away. We don't want that, do we? But of course, the matrix is a response to all. So it's better to show the fear. So then you go through the emotional integration, and the first step is acknowledgement. Because often people feel an emotion, they don't know what that emotion is. They're like, oh, I feel a bit weird, you know, let's have a coffee and off to work and forget about it. You know, what's the emotion you're feeling? A lot of people, they don't know.
So identify it.
Identify it. Is it guilt? Is it fear? Is it jealousy? Is it anger? You know, what's the emotion? And then the
second step is profound, I think.
Yeah, I'm kind of, is it gratitude the next one?
Yes, where you have gratitude for the emotion. You actually have gratitude for fear. You have gratitude for guilt. You have gratitude for jealousy. Explain to us why we want to have gratitude for those things.
Yeah, and that's really, really hard. I'll explain that actually with a personal experience.
Oh, goody.
Going back after writing the book and releasing it, and it was on sale. So after that, I went through a situation where my father was diagnosed with dementia. So he's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And it got
my father as well. I feel your pain on that, and you know, all my good intentions to you.
Yeah, it's really hard, I know.
Magenta, it was so beautiful because I introduced Sandra to him just a couple of weeks ago, and it was the best day he's had in years. It was like my old dad was there, and he was able to enjoy that lovely woman that's coming into my life, and they had had a real nice time. It was beautiful.
That's lovely. Oh, you'll start me off. We'll both be on there crying. I mean, obviously sometimes that true self will present forward. That true self is always there, but there will be times when your dad can't access that true self, and then you can't see that, but it's like a wave process, and you kind of have to come in with your father from a more multidimensional spiritual place, really. And then you'll always have that, because his soul is not damaged in any way. There's no change. It's the brain, it's the human brain, and this is to do with the system that we live in, unfortunately. Yes. And if we didn't have souls incarnating to experience this, then the masses of humanity would not learn about the control structure that's been here, because there's no need for degenerative diseases. But anyway, I'm getting off track. So my father, no, it's fine. I mean, my father was, you know, he taught me everything. He was a hypnotherapist. He first hypnotized me when I was a little child. He taught me so much. He was a major mentor for me. So very difficult to see this man who's been the most intelligent person in my life slowly, you know, lose that focus of mind and that memory, although I saw it happen beforehand. So I kind of could talk to him beforehand and ask him questions about what he might want should the time come when he couldn't make decisions, and spiritual talk about other things too. So I got some good information from my dad before he went into dementia badly. But anyway, going back to this particular example, it had got to the point where my father had to go into a care home, a residential home. The family and the carers we had coming in no longer able to look after him at home, so he had to go into care. And I'm looking around at all these care homes and thinking, oh goodness me, that's not right because of this, and this one's not right because of that. And it was very difficult. It's a difficult system, the care system in the UK. I'm sure it's probably the same in America. It's not an easy system to navigate, and you can end up with the wrong place, you know, you
very
have to
easily.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, I have an emotion right now, and my emotion is, you know, all sorts. This is the thing. You might not just have one emotion and identify, oh, that's fear. It's, with me, it was fear, guilt, guilt that I couldn't give up everything and be his full-time carer, you know, sadness, worry, everything all rolled up together. And it's a horrible feeling. So how am I going to manifest this dream care home with all these emotions going on? And I'm thinking, you know, I wrote this book. I've written this book. How I can't be a hypocrite and not actually do the work. So I'm reading back through the emotional integration sections, and I'm looking at the gratitude, because I did the identification. It's like, okay, I know what I'm feeling. It's like all of this. I'm fully aware of what I'm feeling. Gratitude. And I'm saying, you know, to the nine, I'm being really honest. I'm not grateful for this situation. I'm not grateful. How can I pretend to be grateful when I'm not? And this is so big, because if you look at everything that's happening globally, are we grateful for this situation right now? What's going on politically? Are we grateful for the cabal and the Illuminati and all the awful things that have happened? Of course we're not.
Now you sound like a truther, Magenta.
Yeah, well, I am, you see. I'm a secret truther. I'm a closet truther. I'm a massive.
And you know what? I'm a secret new ager.
Yeah,
don't tell anyone.
I spotted that. So I'm thinking, okay, I genuinely am not grateful, but that's not how I'm going to be able to manifest the reality that I want for my father. If I stay in this place of I'm not grateful, I'm fully aware that I'm manifesting more to not be grateful for. So let's try to find some gratitude. So what it is it's not really a mental thing. It's like, I'm not grateful. That's what the brain is saying. It's emotional. Let's find the feeling of gratitude. Now, I used to do amateur dramatics for many years. I've done a couple of professional stuff too, just little. So I know how to create an emotion that is not real, if you like, in order to create a believable character on stage. Now, you don't have to be a trained actress or actor, or is it just actor now? Yeah, sorry, I think that was a bit sort of sexist. It's just actor now, isn't it? It used to be actress when I was younger. So if you don't have to be a trained actor to do this, that you can do this exercise. So just imagine that you are an actor and you're about to go on stage. Now, in order to create a believable character to the audience, you need to feel the emotion that matches the dialogue that you are speaking. So say the line is, I'm so grateful for this situation. You're not going to go in and flatly not have that emotion and say, I'm so grateful for this emotion, because a clever audience are going to say, that person's just reciting lines.
Yep.
they're not really believable, or they're just acting. If you want to portray a good performance, you're going to come on your stage into your character, and you're going to say, I am so grateful for the situation, and you feel it.
Right.
So what I'm saying to you is, yes, it's not real, but yes, you can get the emotions. So that is what I did. I brought the gratitude up to my heart, and I felt it like an actor on stage. And I said, I'm so grateful for this situation with my father. I am so grateful that I have found this amazing care home that has everything I want. It's a lovely environment. He has a lovely room with all the requirements he wanted, like his own personal lavatory. Believe it or not, care homes, it's very difficult to find one with a personal lavatory here in the UK. So that was one of my dad's requirements, and all these things, lovely carers where he's going to be looked after. And that's what I felt. And I kept doing it. And I am not kidding you. Within 24 hours of doing that exercise, I found that exact home. And my other requirement was that it's right by my house. And it's 5 minutes from my home. I didn't even know I knew about this place, but I dismissed it because of other reasons. And then I discovered that those other reasons were no longer valid. So I went to take a look at this place, and it was perfect. 5 minutes from my house, everything, including the toilet. So
that's beautiful. It
worked. So I can now honestly say that I have lived that emotional integration. I've lived it. I've done it, and
amazing.
You can all do it.
It's Magenta. What if the emotion that you're dealing with on a regular basis is, say, like anger or jealousy, and it's one of those emotions that just grabs you, and it's like a runaway horse. You've lost the reins and it goes. How can you buy yourself some time from the time that anger hits you, or the time that jealousy hits you, or the time that fear hits you? How can you buy yourself some time to be able to stop a second, identify it, have gratitude for it, and then integrate it before the horses run off and you're on a runaway horse?
This is very, very difficult, if not impossible, for 3D thinking individuals to do. Someone in the third dimension that hasn't raised to those higher dimensions of thought, they will find this incredibly difficult. And it might take someone else outside to say, you are angry. Or it might mean that they go into counseling or something.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Magenta Pixie. It looks like we have a little bit of a connectivity challenge here temporarily. We're hoping that she'll come back here before too long. And we're talking about integrating emotions. And we're talking about, from the book, The Masters of the Matrix, that I just read. This is by Magenta Pixie. This was her first book. And it gives you such a profound technique that we've been talking about, feeling those emotions. And then instead of trying to repress them, because if you repress them or suppress them or keep them down, then that also sends a signal to the Matrix. And the Matrix sends the Sentinels, if we follow the Matrix movie analogy, to come after you. And that's not what we want. So we have to deal with these emotions. And of course, we don't want to keep them, for years and years and years, as Magenta was talking about. We want to deal with them and process them. And when we and she's back.
Sorry, did I go? I thought you went.
No, you went. You went, but that's okay. Please continue right where you were. That was perfect.
I'm talking away, and I looked at your face, and you were so still. And I'm saying, Jeff, are you there? And you didn't move. So I thought, oh, something's happened. Okay. So
I just recapped the integration process. So we're trying to figure out how to keep that horse from grabbing the bit and pulling the reins out of our hands and running off with the anger or the fear or the jealousy. So
did you hear me say where it's very difficult, if not impossible?
I heard you say that.
Yeah, for a 3D person. So what actually happens is, when somebody's angry in a third dimensional way of experience, then they don't realize that anger is an emotion that they can separate from themselves and have control over and work with. They just think, they usually will perceive that someone has done that to them. So the anger is the result of an attack from someone else. So when they're angry, it's like, well, it's because of you. It's because of my wife or my mother or my boss or Donald Trump or whoever it may be. Got to throw him in there. So that's how they will perceive it. It's someone else. So the first step is obviously, it has to be some kind of self analysis, moving into therapy or spiritual awareness to actually realize that, okay, I'm feeling anger, and to be able to recognize it, and it's not the result of someone else attacking me. So that's the first step.
Which book is that in, where it says to realize that it's not happening to me, it's happening by me? That was in one of your books.
Possibly.
I think it is in this one, but yeah, that's absolutely profound. So just because you're mad because your husband and your wife, or God forbid, your new fiance does something, it's really not them. It's really our anger, isn't it? We have to own it and realize it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
or our jealousy or our fear or whatever.
Exactly. I mean, obviously, someone around you may act in a very, unbalanced way, but it's your choice how you react. Obviously, when you're in a relationship, sometimes you can react instinctively without thinking,
right,
because you're so intertwined with that person, which is why it's your greatest teaching tool, is to be in a relationship with somebody.
Absolutely.
But the first step really is to realize that you are feeling this emotion, and it's very difficult because it does grab you, and to actually get that space to actually discover that you're feeling an emotion. Often people will act first, think later. But what actually happens with those people is eventually life will show them this. So, they might get into trouble with friends, family, with the legal system, whatever. Eventually they will come to the realization that they're angry. So a really good way of working with integration of anger is to, and this is really for a more advanced thinking person, you are looking at someone who is fourth dimensionally and fifth dimensionally functioning, and or have at least stepped out of that first stage of 3D existence, because it's going on all around us and people are reacting all the time. But as I said, the higher self, the synchronicity of life is always working to guide everyone into evolution and ascension and expansion. We're all being guided into that all the time by that inner program, if you like, or the angels or the higher self, whichever word you want to use. So personifying anger is a really good way of doing it. So taking the anger away from you and giving it a personality. You can even give it a name. So I am angry, so I'm going to take the anger out of me and sit it next to me. It's going to be this little sort of, gremlin type creature with spiky hair and big brown eyes. I'm not going to make it a huge, great, terrifying monster, because I'm not going to be able to deal with that. That's too big and too scary. Let's bring it right down. You can even make it a little sort of tiny creature. That's really good to work with, but you don't want to dominate it either. You make anger your equal partner, and then you talk to it. So let's give it a name. Let's call this little gremlin Fred. So Fred, why are you here with me? And let Fred show you or talk to you. Now, if you are somebody who's able to compartmentalize all those aspects of self and do channeling or work with these different aspects, you will be able to go through this really well. And Fred will say, well, I'm with you because that person said something on Facebook about your or social media about your daughter. So I'm thinking, okay, so somebody said something horrible about my daughter, and that's why I'm feeling angry. So what's this telling me? What's Fred trying to tell me? Do I leave Facebook? Do I go and have a chat with my daughter and get closer to her? Why am I so insecure that it's worried me? Do I have a chat with this friend? Do I learn more about distancing myself from people? Why am I allowing myself to get so involved with what that woman's just said on Facebook? Am I being too overprotective over my child? Or is this what normal mothers do? What I'm doing here is integration. This is what you go through. People will do this all the time when they're on a spiritual path, in one way or another. Self-analysis, learning. So a good way is to take the anger outside of self and talk to it. But gratitude comes in, because that's what changes the code. So anger is putting a code of anger into the matrix, and then we are living our life and drawing other situations into our life to be angry about. So when we have gratitude, Fred, thank you. Thank you for coming to me, because that might actually change something. If you act on anger without integration, you go straight on Facebook, oi you, what are you saying about my daughter? Do you want to meet me outside, have a scrap or whatever? Or Are we going to take a deep breath, integrate, say nothing, don't just defriend the person or whatever you need to do. And when your daughter sees you and says, oh, did you see what that person said about me? Instead of reacting, yeah, and when I see her, I'm going to give her a piece of my mind, you'll say, yes, actually, I did see, what she wrote. How are you feeling about it? You can work and be
right.
the responsible one and the one who assists others.
And then if you bring in the law of one, it's our integration work affects literally everyone else and the entire planet system, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. And that is the law for multiple, if not all, universes, even ones that have tried to change that or work against it. It is the law because it is the pulse, the energy. The law of one is that ultimate consciousness. So when you do something, when you feel something, when you have a reaction, from that higher perspective, there is only you. There is only one soul. So everything you do will affect the quantum aspect of self. It ripples through. So if you've been reading this one about this book, the information is in this book, but the structure is on the front cover of this book. This is your matrix. This is you, infinity. So this is your law of one. This is you living the law of one as the law of one. When you feel something, it ripples through all of these other aspects. So you've got the alternate selves, which is every single manifested structure in existence throughout all timelines. You have a forward line, which is all the future. So you're going down into the future. You're actually affecting your future self with the emotions you feel now. Wow. And your past self. So you can change the past by the present future. You do what's called timeline jumping. You change the past, you go back here, change something, and when you come back, you're in a different structure. Then you've got the diagonal, which is the ancestral. So as you create these angry codes or negative codes, that's passing down your ancestral line to your daughter, to your son, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and so on and so on and so on, until they wake up and break the cycle. So, and then you've got the higher self. You have the upper world, the guidance system, and then the below, which is not as you would think. Obviously, you've read the book, you would know it's not heaven and hell, as in that's good and that's bad. This is the shadow. This is going within. It's beautiful. Exactly. This is the womb. This is going down into the dark forest. And this is the integration. This is the analysis. You could say this is ego, this is higher self, but you want them both. So everything you feel here, which is where you are in balance, this middle point, everything you feel affects everything, because this is your matrix. This is just one depicted model of a toroidal field. Yep. It's a very simplified, according to the 9, basic kindergarten level structure. Thank you. I mean, I just still learning about it, but yes, there's so much to learn about.
And it's so amazing. And I've been doing this idea about people being divine, sovereign, and free, and being their own individual circles. And if this is you, we got enough to deal with just with us. Can you imagine the mess if you get enmeshed with somebody else, and now you're dealing with not only their mess but your mess? It just becomes impossible to manage, literally. Now, Magenta, once we master the process of emotional integration, will that usher us into the 0 point?
Yes, once you go into integration, and I mean, integration isn't sort of, oh, I've done it, I've integrated, and here I am in 0 point. It is a process. It's a never-ending process. But once integration has got to the point where you get quite fast at this,
absolutely,
so anger comes in. Oh, anger, it's done. You do it you may even transmute without even having to acknowledge the emotion, because it flows.
Fred's appearances become shorter and shorter, don't they?
Fred will be Fred becomes a fleeting shadow.
He becomes fast Freddy.
And he transforms and becomes part of you. And of course, when because when I say Fred and personify anger, entities come to you, that's what they are. They're the personification of collective negative energy. So you can work with one anger, which is your anger because of a comment on Facebook, or you can work with collective anger, as in the whole planet, or many planets, or many universes.
Wow.
You
So
know,
we
depends
move
where
from just
well,
service to
everything is
self.
here.
Yep.
Everything is in here. This is everything, all universes, all quantum realities, all galaxies, everything. And this, you know, we are a structure that mirrors the structure. So this is source, this is the pivot point, the nexus point, this is the stargate, the central point, this is you. So when you are on the path to integration, in those early, I say early days, in the beginning point, you will move in and out of 0 point, and you will be able to, at will, move into 0 point and think from 0 point, make decisions from 0 point, because there are no thoughts, there are no decisions when you are there. That's when you go here consciously. So that's 0 point. But so is this, which is the event horizon of the entire structure. This in the middle and this on the outside are the same place, even though they're presented as two different places. That's so the third dimensional brain can understand the structure. And I will say it's just one model of universal fabric. There are many, many models coming through many, many individuals. And the model for you is your model, the one you dream about and the one that you analyze when you look at geometry or when you live this. But the 9 have brought forward through me a model that I can understand, and therefore so can lots of other people who are like me in many ways. And that's a lot of people. So it's a helpful model, but the ultimate model is yours. And this may simply just be a key, and you might change this. You might change the structure in your mind to different colors, different presentations. It's all the way it's meant to be for you. This is really, these books, all of these books are not information of truth for you. They're activation tools so that you can open up and download your own model.
And something just hit me as a reason for gratitude, for these, what we would call dark emotions. A reason to have gratitude for fret or for anger, a reason to have gratitude for jealousy is what you've just explained. Not only are we grateful that this jealousy came to me so I can transmute it into my life, but also because of this structure, now we can say, thank you for helping me play a part in transmuting the damaging emotion of jealousy for the whole planet, for the whole universe, for the whole galaxy. So we're taking what seems service to self, but we're really morphing it into a service to others paradigm.
And that's their job. That's why they're here in a polarity universe. And that answers everything, really, up to the cabal. That's, you know, I mean, that's not excusing the atrocities that anyone does. That's not excusing, because you have to take a stand and say no more. You know, we're not having this polarity anymore, stop. But it does explain why we're experiencing this polarity. It's so that we can, an integration takes place here in 3D, but it continues. It continues in other dimensions. It continues through ascension. That, in fact, it is ascension. Integration of that structure is ascension. That's what ascension is.
And Magenta, I don't want to sound like Benny Hinn or anything, but I just feel like he's one of these preachers in America that says, I see there's somebody sitting there, you have a bad shoulder, if you send me $100, I'll heal it. But I just sense that there's somebody that's watching us, Magenta, that's quite advanced spiritually. They're doing their best to do the work, and they feel very, very guilty about having this anger or this jealousy come into their life. They feel very guilty about it. And I just feel very powerfully led to share with them, you know, based on what Magenta has said, it may very well be that this anger, this jealousy is coming to you because it's part of your service to others to help transmute this anger and this jealousy, this fear for the entire universe, the entire planet. So don't feel guilty. Don't feel like there's lack. Maybe you even feel honored that the divine, the mother, the father have chosen you to help be a person to transmute this for all of us. So thank you very much.
So I'm just trying to work out what structure you are responding to, that you're communicating with there. I would say that the structure you're seeing is a minority structure, but it does exist. It's not a group, a large group of individuals. I mean, when you look at the service to self groups, there are a whole load of different emotions and behaviors and opinions, and so you can't say the cabal anymore or the Illuminati. It is not a unified structure. They are breaking up, and some are moving away and creating new factions that are against the old faction. I mean,
Right.
it's so complicated. I feel that the energy that you are addressing there, so you're saying that there are higher beings, powerful beings watching us and are feeling guilt due to the pathway that they've taken and the choices that they've taken.
Or even the emotions that they're feeling on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would agree with what you said to them. And I would say that there is a reason why they've been here. They've been here to do a job. And once we realize where they are in our own structure and part of our oneness, then that becomes part of our integration. So they've assisted us, and then they have to go away and look at their entire structure as well and work out where's their polarity, where's their choice. Because if
Absolutely.
they are, yeah, if they're a service to self individual feeling these emotions, then they won't have made a choice to polarize a service to self fully, because those that have made the choice to polarize fully will have integrated guilt in a different way. It won't be integrated, I'll say properly, it won't be integrated like a service to others individual. It's consumed really rather than integrated, but it's a similar process. Those feeling, yes, those feeling guilt would not have chosen yet. So they can still choose where to polarize. They can still choose to be service to others if they want to.
And what a great segue from this book, your first book that talks about mastering the matrix. And most of us would be happy. Oh, we mastered the matrix. Great. We mastered it. We're in 0 point. We can cancel contracts. We can make new contracts. We've mastered the matrix. But that's just the first step, because not only can you master the matrix, but you get to go ahead and build your own matrix. You are a creator. You can get to build your own matrix. You can, Magenta talks about the divine architecture. There's even a template for you to do it. And not only are you just mastering this matrix, why be satisfied with that when you can actually become the architect of your own matrix? You can really become divine. You can really become sovereign. You can really become free. And I love how you talk about shadow work here. I love how you talk about flow. And one of the powerful thoughts that I took away from this book was the thought of holding in my mind more than one opinion or more than one belief about any specific thing. And that allows there to be no blockage, that allows there to be greater flow. And it really allows the manifestation of what I really want and really believe by opening up more pathways. Just to bring it down to a mundane thing. Let's say that you have something you want your spouse to do. And instead of telling your spouse, I want you to do this, be open and let your spouse do what they want to do. And I'm telling you, more often than not, the spouse is always going to do something that's good for them. And if you really love that person, it's going to end up being what you really wanted them to do, only better. So just keeping those pathways open and not locking yourself into one way of thinking is a very powerful thing, Magenta. And it's hard to do, but boy, if you can start to master these things, you really can be the architect of your own matrix. Now, did I just butcher your whole book, or am I okay?
No, I'm just thinking how my spouse is probably watching this. So I will actually remember that next time. Next time I want him to do something, I'll just be like, no, but you're absolutely right. You're utterly correct. And we have to learn to integrate this into our life. And the 9 call this sort of double think, where you take these two different perspectives. Bilocational consciousness, which is all in the next book, and as I said, I didn't plan any of this. Same as how I didn't plan the Magenta Pixie name. I didn't plan the books. I had no idea that they would follow on from one another. So you're correct. This is about matrix mastery and matrix awareness, and this is about matrix architecture. You build the structure, because when you build the structure, if you look at, I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Emoto, who wrote Messages from
Yes,
Water.
absolutely.
Okay, so his work sort of, if you like, proves, even though it's not proof, it's the nearest thing we possibly have on this planet that I'm aware of anyway. It proves that your emotional feelings create structure within the DNA, which is the matrix.
That's profound. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
it really is creating this crystalline structure. It's real.
It's real. It's absolutely real. And if you go and read Messages from Water, and I know that there are people who call this pseudoscience or whatever. I went to his talk a couple of years ago before he passed away. I actually got to see him live at his talk, and it was amazing. And where he took those emotions, either from music or from words, and put them on the sort of frozen or crystallized water, and then took out the water patterns to see, and you had these beautiful sort of snowflake like geometric patterns, and then these sort of blobs in response to the different frequencies created by words or music or whatever it was. Well, we're doing the same thing, because the DNA is water. It's not water, it's fluid. It's actually liquid light. It's actually plasma, liquid plasma light. There is no word for what it is, but it is a responsive medium, like a liquid, like water, that has memory like water does. So that when we are building this and we're visualizing this structure, our DNA is mirroring that, just like the message. We're passing a frequency, literally. It's not.
And it's just like those things where, you know, they put the sand on the black thing, and they put the sound.
Exactly
That's other proof. Yes,
yeah, it's the same thing.
It's
we're doing it, so that's why
it is proof, Magenta. I think it's proof. It's proof for me.
Well, it is proof, absolutely. But I mean, there are people who won't see it as proof, but then you could actually give them, you could give some people proof in front of their faces and they wouldn't see it. And that is not what it's about. You can't find the truth from proof. That's not where you should be looking. Proof is going to take you away from what you're looking for. I think one of the things you say is it's an inside job, which I think is great.
Sandra actually coined that.
Sandra, excellent. It's inside. That's where the proof is. It's inner proof. But you mentioned the unicorn and the rainbow matrix. Well, if you visualize a unicorn and a rainbow, you're doing the same thing. You don't have to build this structure. This is 6-dimensional, geometric, mathematical structure to create change within the DNA. But you can do it with a unicorn. You can do it with a rainbow, because that is frequency. It's all about frequency. So you can use the energy from a ruby stargate or a sapphire blue stargate or a shining diamond. You are drawing the energy of these structures. You're taking the frequency, which is very high. A unicorn is extremely high frequency. You can take dragons, which is a different energy, also a high frequency if you are with the right dragon. And there's lower ones as well, obviously. But whatever that visual is, maybe Merlin walking towards you in a long blue gown with stars and moons all over, and touching you on the head with his long sort of wand with a star on the end, and sprinkling pixie dust all over you, and you can feel these golden shimmers. These visuals are creating a frequency and an emotion, and the DNA responds to the frequency. This is why the new age stuff has validity to it when you look at it that way, and you look at what rainbows and unicorns and, if you like, fluffy bunnies, what do they actually do? You know, what are they doing to your emotions when you look at these structures and you visualize them? They change the DNA structure and take you into the evolutionary path that is your divine right to experience.
Absolutely. And Magenta, is this what you're talking about when you say that this mastery, this architecture is high magical work?
Exactly. High magic, high white magic.
And it really is. It really is. And it's just amazing. I mean, I have pages and pages, but we've kept you too long. I really appreciate you being here. It's just amazing the work that you're doing. And I can't encourage people enough to get a hold of your books. I'm looking forward to getting into your third book. I've just started it. I want to really get in. And when I read them, Magenta, I just don't read them. I have my highlighter with me, and then I highlight everything, and I go back and read what I've highlighted, and I make notes out of it. So I'm really learning a lot from it. I want to thank you so much. And please tell people where they can get information about you and where they can get these wonderful books. Again, the first book, Masters of the Matrix, and I would recommend reading them in this order. I'll ask Magenta if she thinks that's right, but read them, Masters of the Matrix, then the Divine Architecture and the Starseed template, and then the brand new one, Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame.
Well, magentapixie.com is my website, and you can click on a link there, which will take you to the Amazon link for your country. So all the different countries, Amazon links, whether you want the actual paperback book or the Kindle. Now, I do believe you can actually get the book also from places, because some people don't like Amazon. So they are for sale on Barnes & Noble and Wordery and the Book Depository as well. So you'll find them there. That's not, you won't be able to go to those links, I don't think, through my website. That's because they've bought the books for their,
right.
you know, so you can find them there. I've had people ask me, I don't use Amazon, so where else can I get them? So you can get them there. Now, what I would say about reading them in order, if you are a complete beginner to spirituality, or if you are someone who is a truther and is now looking to embrace this path as part of your truth journey, or if you are even spiritually aware but you haven't necessarily worked with sacred geometry and you've been perhaps more working with different aspects to your spirituality, I would say for you, read them in the order that Jeff just said. Masters of the Matrix first, followed by Divine Architecture, followed by the Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame. If you are already on a spiritual path and you are already working with this energy and have been for a long time, and everything you've heard me say today, you're fully aware of this, this is your path already, then it doesn't matter which order you read them in. And to be honest, you may not even need these two, because you will have already done some kind of integration or building of structure already. I would say go straight to this one. And
that's the first time I've ever disagreed with you, Magenta. I think everybody should read all three of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do too. But what I mean is, if you just wanted one and you were already on a spiritual path, then I would say go for the third. But yeah, I mean, I love my books, and I read them myself.
They're powerful. They're powerful. And let me just close with this. One of those new age cliches that used to bug me. It literally would bug me. I would like grit my teeth when I heard it, because I thought it was so cheesy. I thought it was so cliche. I thought it was so silly. And then I'm reading your book, and I read, and it hits me like the proverbial ton of unicorn food or whatever. It just hit me hard that when you say love and light, it's not just some silly cliche. When you say love and light, it is actually a thing that releases harmony. It releases frequency. It's actually a structure. And when you say it, it actually releases, is it the light love and the love light into people's life and into the universe? So Magenta, now I say it on every show, love and light. How funny is that? You got truthers saying love and light, Magenta.
And seriously, though, you truthers start saying that. We spread that awareness. It's a code. It's a mathematical, geometric code. Because if you feel the energy love, if you allow yourself to feel the energy, the emotion that goes with that, and light, you are looking at pure source. And that is pure source as a oneness. And then you're moving into the first sort of pulse away from that oneness, the male, the female, however you want to see that first movement away. Love and light has everything within it. Light being the information, the DNA awareness, and that gives you the structure that the DNA is moving into, this 12-stranded, if you like, 144 strand. I mean, when you get through this one, call me back and we can talk more, because honestly, I mean, when I brought these two forward, I mean, I was just so excited and happy, and it was great to have brought this information through, and I just was amazed really by the information that was coming through and reading it. But this one completely blew me away when I brought the information through. So I'd really like
I'm excited.
See that one was just like you know, and it only took me 2 months to write the third one. The first two I was sort of 6-7 months really in the process, and they're really small. This one, because the information was coming, I mean, if you'd have asked me the question in the middle of writing that, how often do the 9 talk to you, I would have said 24/7, because that's how it was when I was writing
nearly
that
400
book.
pages, folks.
They were talking to me every single day and all night. So
and Sandra just said she's really drawn to the green one. So we're moving in together on Wednesday. So I think Magenta, I better read this before Wednesday, or I might not get a chance to do so until Sandra's finished with it.
Wow. Well, congratulations. Moving is a big, but you know, I don't see any stress around you though. You seem to just be quite chilled about the move.
You know, I feel like a kid on Christmas morning, Magenta. I really do. I feel like she's my destiny twin flame. I feel just the most incredible love and peace and joy. And I mean, I'm selling everything. I got to give up my studio. We're going into an apartment. That's what it necessitates. And, you know, everybody's telling me, how can you give up? How can you give up? How can you give up? But in my mind and what you're saying, Magenta, I'm not giving anything up. I'm gaining so much more. It's an honor and a privilege. And I'm filled with joy and anticipation. And I can't wait to get there. It's just amazing and powerful. Thank you for noticing that. Thank you.
Thank you. And tell Sandra, yes, to join us next time.
Absolutely. I will. And she'll love you for that. Magenta, I am going to read this book. And I was just thinking in my mind, I hope I can read this and call her back. And you said it, so I'm going to do it. Excellent.
Lovely. Lovely to talk to you again, Jeff.
You're one of, you know, I have a lot of great guests, but I don't know if you're at the top of the list, but you're right there with all the others. It's beautiful. It's powerful. And I'm so glad that you were obedient to the message from the 9 to reach out to folks on the other side of the aisle. And I really think that Magenta, our work together and this work between our two camps is just beginning.
Oh, I agree. Totally.
And if you ever feel that you want to reach out to me or ask me any questions, or even give me some gentle suggestions about things that you might say, Jeff, maybe you want to, I open that up to you because I do trust you and believe that you are a real channel of information from the divine. So please don't hesitate to do that. Okay.
Wow. I think you're doing great.
Thank you, Magenta. It's my pleasure. And for Magenta Pixie, I just want to say to all of you, love and light.
Love and light.
And the divinity in me does recognize the divinity in you. I salute you here for being here, seeking after truth. And for all of the rainbows and the unicorns and the fluffy bunnies, if we can get together and do it, you can get together and do it. You can unindoctrinate yourself. You can create yourself and build the life that you'll love. Buy these books. They will help you. And go to Magenta Pixie's channel and subscribe. It's in the box below. Go to our website. Magenta, thanks again so much, and we'll talk again real soon.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you, and thank you again, Magenta. We'll see you real soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.